Ladies and gentlemen, good evening,
Hi,
everybody.
everybody.
Again, Happy New Year, even though I think it's January 14th, but still, I think it's our first. In English, it's a first, session. So, Happy New Year,
Exactly.
everybody. We are on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. So, if you can be so kind and put in the comments that everything is fine. We have Mika. Good evening, world. Happy New Year, my darlings from Finland. Happy New Year to Finland.
Exactly.
Uh,
We've got our regulars already showing up so good.
ab- ab-
2025 is off to a great start.
Absolutely. It's only 2 weeks. It's quite a lot already. So if you can put, if folks from Facebook or LinkedIn can put that you can see us and hear us, that would be great. I may check on my phone. Let's least LinkedIn.
Perfect.
Uh,
And I'm sure for those of you who are live and want to share, if you made a New Year's resolution and you want to share it with us, we'd love to hear it. Because so
yeah.
many people, I would say there's two camps this year. This year, some people said, absolutely, New Year, I'm fresh, I've got new ideas. And a lot of people said, oh, I'm not even going to bother. I never even keep my resolution. So they've almost given up before they started. And so for me, I'm like, we got to have a conversation. That's what we're going to talk about here today. Don't give up and don't quit once you have one, because there's a really easy way to make it work for you and to actually make those resolutions happen.
Actually, according to some studies, 70% of the people will give up in less than half year, less than
I,
6 months.
I bet even within the first month, for those of us who go to like fitness centers every January, you're like, oh, here
Oh,
comes the
fitness.
crowd, the
I never
parking lot's
go.
full.
I never go to my fitness center in the first 2, 3 weeks, and then it's free.
And then
Again.
it's fine again. Exactly.
Absolutely, absolutely. Okay, why don't we kick it off? So we have an interesting agenda today, interesting topic, micro habits, which I think it's the only way how to really, keep your New Year or whatever, resolution or goals you have in your life. Why don't you kick it off, Lisa?
Yeah, I would love to, because it's so fun for me to talk about change, because that's what everyone comes to us as coaches for. They want to know, how do I get better? How can I change this? How do I improve? And of course, everybody comes and they're looking for a huge transformation. It's January, I'm going to drop 10 kilos, right? Or, oh, I want to be a completely different
Right.
person by the time. And I'm always like, love the aspiration. And the way that we're going to get there is not with a big bang, but we're going to have tiny steps that make it so easy. So you underestimate how much you can do. Like, you think, oh my God, I want to be this. And I say, no problem. Make a small change today, make a small change tomorrow, make a small change the next day. And when you look back halfway through the year, 6 months, 7 months, by the time everyone else has quit, you will have made tremendous progress, but you won't have the wow effect of tomorrow I'm bikini ready. And that's okay. Any of those really drastic changes, for the most part, they happen for two reasons. One, something really terrible has happened. So you've had a health scare, you've gotten
Right.
divorced, you've had cancer, you've got laid off from your job. That's when big moments of change happen. Otherwise, these small moments of change are much more sustainable for you and are more likely to make you the person that you want to be, instead of give you 6 months of sort of faking the person that you want to be. And the micro habits that we're going to talk about here today, we're going to talk about the psychology behind it. We're going to talk about the actual ways, what habits can you create through, that are going to get you where you want to go. This is what's going to fundamentally change what your 2025 can look like. So at the end of 2025, you can say, after I listened to this podcast and I made these tiny, so easy, tiny, small, easy changes, I have become more of the person that I wanted to be. So if that sounds interesting to you, then you're in the right place.
Okay. Let's talk a little bit about the science behind, micro habits. Okay. So why micro habits? Because our brain doesn't like change, and if we take some total goal, like, hey, I would like to lose. Lisa mentioned the example with fitness center. I wanted to lose like 10 kilos. Okay, if you will have that goal, and at the beginning of the January, you will probably give up, in 4 or 5 weeks, because it's too much for our brain. Our brain doesn't like huge change. On the other hand, brain likes progress. That's about micro habits, because micro habit can be okay. I wanted to lose like 10 kilos, which probably it's like for a whole year or maybe half of the year. But I think it makes sense to go like, in my experience, like 1 kilo per week. That's probably even maybe less,
Max.
one
Yeah.
kilo. If you are like active, athlete like me, it's probably, achievable. Anyway, but, your micro habit can be following. I do something like 30 to 60 minutes, like if I don't exercise at all, like 30 to 60 minutes kind of, brisk walk every, second day, every day, like 30 minutes, some walk. I go to fitness 3 times a week. Okay. And the micro habit is really every day I do something small. And if you finish, what your brain will do, your brain will reward you. There is some, hormone called dopamine. Dopamine plays very important role in our lives, because dopamine is about rewarding you about the past, But dopamine is also motivating you for the future. Okay. Now, let's talk about how that, habit is created, or the skill is created in your brain, because it's key to, if you will understand that, you can achieve almost anything in your life. Okay. If we do some activities, let's put it in a different way. Skill, or the habit equals, your talent, your disposition. Talent is basically genes you getting. You are probably, more talented for some activities, less talented for some other activities. Anyway, so your talent multiply by investment in that talent. How much, you do that activity. For example, you have a talent on strategic thinking, so it is like I want to be exposed to, in some, projects, to my strategic thinking and so on. Okay. And what is happening in your brain, more and more you do that activity, that skill is captured by synaptical connections, because when we were born, we've got at about 110 billion brain cells called, neurons. Okay. And those neurons, once you do something as a child, for example, the key thing, if that would be that some, perfume, but if that would be my bottle, like with the milk. Okay. One of the key skills the child is having to get that, grip and hold the bottle. It's a key
Yeah.
for survival. So there's a lot of, and for that, it is not easy. By the way, the reason why humankind is so much ahead is because of our, hand, and or we can basically some tools and stuff like that. This is why we are so good, right? So, and then the synaptical connection, whenever the child is taking the bottle, new synaptical connection is created. Is created a skill. That's in the childhood. Then in whatever skill we do, it is like that. Now, if you, so those, synaptical connections, imagine there are wires between, different neurons. So there are a lot of, wires between, among your neurons, right? And now, what is happening if you do that activity very often, if it's really becoming your habit? What is happening? Imagine there would be like two synapses, okay? And there is a, neuron in between. So what is happening if you do that activity very often? Imagine this is the tape, and every time I do that activity, I'm taping, that connection. It's called myelin, you know. More I tape it, the bigger, myelin I have. If you create the myelin, the signals which are representing that activity are going faster, are more accurate, and are stronger. This is the reason why we have, like, Lisa speaks German much better than me, but in German there is a Übung macht Meister, right? Übung macht Meister. Repetition is the master in English. This is it. And once we, repeat, the myelin is created. And this is the reason. And now the question is obviously, what is good for the myelin? And what do you realize? There is a great book. It's not necessarily only about the habits, but the book name is Talent Code from Daniel Coyle. And he asked the question, what does it take to create those myelins in your brain? And it's basically a repetition, but not only like easy repetition, but it's repetition slightly out of your comfort zone. That's we talk about the flow, okay? Now, so it's about repetition. Then it's about your ability to learn, because if you will create some habits and it will be out of your comfort zone, chances are that you will make some mistakes, okay? If the error or the mistake is done, what your brain does will create a peak of neuroadrenaline, basically saying, "This is important. You should, remember that for the next time." But we are refusing mistakes because we are afraid if we would say, "Hey, I made a mistake," what the other people, this is the FOPO, fear of other people opinion, right? What the other people would tell me. So there is a neuroadrenaline saying this is important. There's another hormone called cytokinin. Imagine the light, which is like highlighting where's the issue. That's the cytokinin. Okay. And then if you know where's the issue, and you can reframe that problem, there's a dopamine which is saying, okay, I learned something from that mistake, but I'm motivated, to continue further on. This is exactly when the child is learning walking. This is exactly what is happening. The problem is that once we are adult, we are always like stuck with the past. We are suffering because we are, attached to the past. If you will realize, hey, I need, to learn and move on, this is it. And last point, I want to, and then we can talk how the best, create micro habits. But the last point about micro habits is that our brain doesn't work like success is not about elevator. Success is about the stairs. Okay, our brain really likes to have homeostasis, which means like doesn't like the change, even though there is some progress, so step by step, but then the brain needs to take uh, some rest. What is also very important for creating new skills and new micro habits and habits is your sleep. Because if you are not sleeping enough, forget about myelins. Whatever you do, you can train very hard, you can train out of the comfort zone, but then the synapses are not new stuff, new synapses are not creating during that activities. What in fact is happening, during the deep sleep, your brain is like trimming what you don't need, right? And really like tuning what you really need, what is really important from the previous day. That's the deep sleep. And during the REM phase, basically the new learnings are connected with the existing knowledge. That's what is happening. So sleep, we talked about it in the past, it's key. So that was a long talk, but I wanted to give you a little bit science and some studies what is behind microhabits.
Yeah. I mean, I think this is really important because a lot of times people think like, oh, like, let's just, I'm going to motivate myself to do it. I'm going to get a motivational speaker. I'm going to see something on TikTok or Instagram and it's going to get me going. And the reality is you have to work with the science. Your brain, your body, they work in a very certain way. And you have actually not so much control over it. And the problem is that so many of us think if I just use my willpower, if I just use mental strength, I can overcome anything. And the thing is, sure, you can for a very short period of time. If you're not too tired, if you're not too overworked, if there's so many things that start to eat away at your willpower that at the end of the day, it's really hard for you to resist a cookie, more so than at the beginning in the morning when you're fresh and you've slept and you've had a good night's sleep, no problem. Willpower is very finite. It's very much about how much extra energy you have in your brain to really fight against something. And what I always tell people is, do you want to make this hard or do you want to make this easy? Because if we're going to use mental strength and willpower on everything, you're making it hard for yourself. Because you literally have to be in constant battle, constant fight, constant. And at some point you go, screw it, I'm going to eat the cookie.
Right.
So just the opposite of what we want to do is we want to put systems in place that just naturally set us up for these right habits. What I want to do, and everything that I do with habit formation, is I try as much as possible to turn my brain off. Okay. So when I'm at home, every morning I fill with a cup of water and I have it at my desk. And then I don't have to think to myself, did I drink enough? Am I drinking throughout the day? I just have it, I fill up a bottle of water and I have it at my desk in front of me. And you guys know, if you watch the videos as we're talking, I'm always drinking when I'm sitting at my desk. Otherwise, throughout the day, I might be running around, I'm out, I might not be drinking, but I've made the habit easy just by having it in front of me. This is what I want you to think about. Micro habits are really just about systems. And this doesn't just work at my individual level. Google would redesign their kitchens that they had in their offices, because what they figured out is when people go to grab a drink, they might, they're tired, maybe they grab a Red Bull, maybe they grab a soda. And so what they did is they redesigned their refrigerators. And so, and the see-through part of the refrigerator and all the snack rooms, it's clear, and the see-through part is all bottles of water. And then underneath, there's like a, glossed out piece that you can't really see through. And that's where they have the sugary drinks underneath. Now, what happens is visually, people think, oh, I'm thirsty. They see the water real quick and they open it and grab the water because there wasn't really a choice. They visually set themselves up. When you walk into a grocery store, what's the thing that you see first? They put the fruits and vegetables there for you first so that you can pick them out. They actually do that to trick you because you feel so healthy and so good that by the time you get over to the cookie aisle, you feel you deserve a treat. But so I'm telling you, there's so much psychology behind the choices that we have to make. What you can do is always make available the healthy and easy choices, and then don't keep cookies in the house. Don't walk by that aisle. When you set yourself up with snacks at work, for example, these are the very, very, very small things you can do. I just want to share maybe one example that's like, I did it today, right? I've been having trouble. I have to tell you guys, I'm going to be honest. I've been having trouble getting myself motivated to do a lot of fitness. I ate a lot of junk food over the holidays, and I just have not been back in good shape.
You are not alone. You are not alone.
I don't think I'm alone. I
got 4 kilos,
I mean, Christmas, it's like you're at parties all the time. Everybody wants to drink with you. I had my birthday in December. So it just adds up. And then when you've eaten enough junk food, your body feels junky and it doesn't want to work out, right? So I told myself today, okay, what's the smallest, easiest thing that I can do? It was very cold here in Switzerland. And I was like, oh, I wish it were warm. So I said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go to the swimming pool and I'm going to make it so wonderfully easy for myself, because there is obviously the word in English is escaping me, like a sauna, a steam room. And I said, I would love to sit in a steam room. And so, by the way, when I'm in the steam room and I'm there and I'm at the swimming pool, I'll also hop in the water and swim however many laps I want. But how much easier was it for me to motivate myself to go to, so I could sit in the warmth. And then once I'm there and I have my swimsuit on and I'm already in the water, of course, then I swim and it was super healthy. But notice that I made the decision not feel hard. Oh, do I want to work out? Do I want to expend a lot of energy? Oh, but I have this other excuse. I found a way to couple it and make it something easy. And this is what we want to do with our micro habits. You don't always have to think I have to do the healthy, right thing. Just set yourself up in ways that make it easy to do the right thing.
Okay. Now, let's talk about how the habits are, created, right? There needs to be some trigger. That's number one. Number two, there's some, activity or behavior. Number three, there's some reward. I give you one habit, which I think I just created recently. And there is a lot of science behind it. You mentioned, Lisa, how our supermarkets are sophisticated in a way.
Oh, yeah, they're tricking you.
Hey, the healthy stuff. And then you stay, in a long line unless there's a self-service. you stay long line, to pay, and there is all of those cookies, and all it's like 60% protein, right? Whatever. Anyway, this is the habit basically for the restaurants, or just for the eating, right? In restaurants, always they are bringing you, some bread first, right?
Mhm.
And it's usually nice bread, whatever. And it's a very smart because they would like you to eat sugar first, and that's a basically bread, right? There's a sugar in bread because if you eat sugar, the chances are that you will be hungry much faster, so you will eat much more. Okay, so here is the trick. There is a lady. She's a French. You can find her. I don't remember the name, but she's really good. She's a scientist. She's a biologist, and she calls herself glucose goodness. And she's good. Bread is life, that's for sure. But you need to. I explain it. So the first, you should eat vegetables, okay? Because what veggie, and then you can eat whatever, even dessert, and then at the end again vegetables. Because what they figure out, those vegetables will create some filter, some protection in your gut, and basically the glycemic curve is flattening by 70%. Okay, because usually if you eat something sweet, you feel good, but then it's like you are crashed. So this is it. Start with the veggie, some small. It doesn't need to be big, and finish with the veggie, and it's really good. And even like for the dinner, if you go for some dessert, this is it. Ideally, it should be like veggie, proteins, then potatoes or whatever, rice, some side dish, right? Uh, uh, Dessert, if you eat dessert, and then again veggie. And this is the way how you flatten. You will not eat that much, and you will flatten the glycemic curve, right? And for me, like, the trigger was like I wanted to lose the weight, right? Obviously that was a trigger. Behavior is like, okay, I can still eat reasonably if I will do the right thing. And the reward is I have much bigger energy after the dinner or after the lunch, when usually you are like, exhausted, right? So
Yes.
this is it. Because, and then if you do it, a couple of times, it's perfect. Now, the question is, how about if I have some, bad habit? Can I, change it? Uh, the answer is yes. And the answer, majority of the time, how it's treated through the mindfulness. Because once you realize what you do, for example, what they did with the smokers, a little bit like with the heavy smokers, right? As you rightly said, Lisa, our willpower is like 100% in the morning, but each and every decision is lowering the willpower. So the willpower in the evenings, okay, I go for those cookies anyway, or for the chocolate, fuck you, right?
Exactly.
Willpower is close to zero, right? Anyway, so what they did basically, they said you smoke, but smoke mindfully, really, and put all senses in that smoking, right? That you really how you feel and so on. And people say, well, it smells. In fact, when I really concentrate and stuff like that, like step by step, because if your willpower, because your willpower is about neocortex, it's about logical part of the brain, right? It's 10 times slower than amygdala, than emotional part of the
Yeah.
brain. And it's powerful in the morning, but not that powerful in the evening. It's your amygdala
Right.
saying like, oh, fuck you, it's I deserve that dessert, I
I
deserve
earned it. Yes, exactly.
I deserve two dessert, right? Anyway, so what you need to do, it's really help your professor, your neocortex, your logical part of the brain, and mindfulness, which means like doing things, mindfully, I'm aware what I'm doing. It's a great habit. And it's like, if you wanted to not overeat, it's good to chew mindfully. One thing I started to do, I started to be more mindful about my chewing, because if you are not chewing enough, it's too fast. Because if you are chewing enough, all of those chemicals are released, and you are like full earlier than if you are not chewing, the minute
Yes.
this is it. So it will be different science, but this is just like my recent new habits, what I try to do.
I have to say, I want to respond to that, and then we have our comments blowing up, so we'll get to those in a moment. It's so important to be mindful, and here's a tip of what I do. When at the end of the day you don't have willpower and you want to tap into your mindfulness, simply close your eyes and say, I'm going to take 30 seconds to a minute. Before you eat at any time, just like you would before you would respond to an email when you're angry, you're really mad, you want to die. Every time before I eat, I do something to make sure. Maybe it's a breathing exercise, maybe it's something to activate the nervous system, but something so that I'm not stress eating, I'm not coming at it from I'm relaxed, and then your body actually is open to digesting more. Or if for in a work context, you have a clearer head to be able to respond in a way that you want. Basically, you're activating that smart part of the brain that
Yeah.
Jan was talking about.
I will clarify, because I think Martina Hrabachkova, she said water is instead of water makes sense, but she meant instead of biscuit. And Philip was
Yes.
asking, what instead of biscuit? Yeah, but if you can do it, absolutely. The thing is that people are not drinking enough water. That's why they are eating sometimes too much, including me. I'm not like innocent, right? Boris Janota.
But before we go off of that one, I
Okay.
just want to add something. First things
Okay.
first, everybody in the morning, drink a cup of water. What happens overnight is you get dehydrated. And then because you're dehydrated, and most people wake up and they have the cup of coffee, obviously caffeine actually dehydrates you more. So you
Exactly.
think, oh, I'm drinking something, then you're dehydrated. Then your body starts in the wrong place and wants to eat more, have more breakfast, etc. So the very first thing I do in the morning, just like you have your routine, you go to the bathroom, you're going to brush your teeth, you drink a cup of water before you cup of coffee, before you eat anything, 1 cup. That already starts you on the hydration path. Now, when you go to a restaurant, when you go to eat a meal, you drink your water before any eating. That already fills you and makes sure your hydration is there. These are what I mean by micro habits. It's just the
Absolutely.
habit. When I sit down at a table, when I go out to eat, I drink my water. When I wake up in the morning, I drink my water. Therefore, I'm hydrating in a way that doesn't make me overeat to compensate for it. You will feel better. You will look better. Such a tiny
and
habit to do.
and
Drink.
and this guys, the same. If you speak, for example, I mean, those of you may see me, speaking, publicly. I usually have like 2 bottles of water there, because as Lisa rightly said, you are, sweating a little bit, but also your respiratory, work, your respiratory activity, you're getting a lot of, water out of, because of the respiration, right?
Yeah.
And if you don't have enough water, in fact, our brain is like, floating on the water, or not on the water, on some, other chemicals. But for that, our brain needs really water. Boris
Yeah.
make a very good comment. For me, it's helpful if I share my goals with my contacts, and they can recognize the improvement day by day. For sure, lose some kilos. That's also good. If you have a social environment you can work with, that's absolutely fine.
There are so many great parts about being part of a community. So A, you have people who check in on you. B, people who encourage you. Maybe
Right.
also C, people who are actually coming along with you on your journey. Maybe you said, I want to learn a new language, and you're on a Duolingo, and you have someone else who says, oh, I've also wanted to learn Spanish. I'll do Duolingo with you. And you guys can then say, okay, let's meet for coffee. And the more you can make it social, the more fun it will be, the more accountable you will be. That is definitely true. And the more you have people to celebrate with. So it's very good to celebrate this with other people. And also at work, I have a lot of time with leaders where I'm telling them, tell people you're getting coaching. Tell them what you're working on. Ask for their feedback. Ask for them to be a part of the journey. They don't expect you to be perfect from day one, but they will love being part of that with you. When you say after the meeting, hey, I'm working on my presentation skills. How was my presentation? What's one piece of feedback you would give me to improve for next time? They're involved. They're emotionally connected. You're learning. You're emotionally connected. They'll start asking, hey, what do you think I could do? And you have this great ripple effect in community. This is so important. Instead of keeping it to yourself and just trying to do it all on your own, we're social creatures. It should always be social.
Now, the question is, how long does it take to create a habit? There are some school of thoughts, 21 days, 30 days, 60 days. And I think it really depends what kind of the habit. What is clear that once you created that, myelin, and you really, do it like there is a repetition, it is out of the comfort zone. You are learning from your, mistakes. And you are also using what is helping to create, stronger myelin if you use that habit or that skill in the different areas. Okay. I'll give you one example where I think I really learned during my 22 years in Microsoft, an additional 10 years now I'm out of the Microsoft already, so it's more than 30 years. And it's like working with the people and figuring out what are their talents, because I'm using for 30 years now Gallup, right? And I'm able to say if somebody is having like strategic talent and that person is like basketball player, I'm helping, able to coach him in that sport. If somebody like a lawyer, I have now some lawyer and coaching, if that lawyer is having strategic skills again in that area, right? Because I coach so many people, so I think I have myelin create a lot of myelins created in my brain. And so those are like different areas. If you think about, obviously, Leonardo da Vinci, he didn't know what is myelin. By the way, myelins, we figured out like only 20 years ago. We knew that there's something happening there, but scientists really didn't know what exactly was the role of myelin. 20 years ago, we figured out myelin is key in championship, or if you want to really be good in something, right? So different areas, because the Da Vinci was really good in medicine, in art, right, in science, if you will, right? And the last point, which is helping to create a myelin, if you are inspired, okay, they call it in that book that people are igniting, right? Ignited, which means like, hey, we are like, fired up. We have some good examples, some good, role model, right? This is why it's important to learn from the best people. So if you wanted to create some habit, try to find in your neighborhood or in your work or whatever, or on YouTube, somebody who is really able to do it already in profession, on a professional level, and this is it. And it is about self discipline is something different from the willpower. Self discipline, you can train. Willpower, yeah, willpower is good, don't take me wrong, but it has its limits. Absolutely.
Exactly. It's very limited. And I want to make sure we go back. We missed one question from Philip, who was
Okay.
asking that he has multiple sclerosis and what can MS patients do when microhabits maybe aren't working? And Philip, I don't know if you want to share more specifically about which microhabits aren't working, but when I work with people who have any form of autoimmune disease or things like that, I often work on nervous system. So I talk really a lot about breath work. Because what happens is when you have some kind of a disease like this, obviously it has to do with inflammation within the body and the body attacking itself. So anything you can do to lower inflammation is important. I'm sure you know diet, exercise, etc. But most of the time what's actually happening, and I'm going to be honest, the reason that most of us have bad habits, it's really just a coping mechanism for an emotion. So why do we drink too much? Why do we smoke when we're stressed? Why do we eat the cookie when we're mad at our boss or we're overwhelmed by the kids? They're all emotional responses and emotional coping habits. And the reason that they're hard to kick is because emotions are hard. They don't become easier because you've decided you want to, be a better boss this year. That doesn't take away emotional habits. So we need to understand how to better cope with them. And so really one of the best things you can do to remove the inflammation are breathing exercises, and then things that will activate the nervous system, and the parasympathetic nervous system, the calming. So that's where I would actually focus before I would worry about, did I eat the right food or did I get the right amount of sleep? I would start to say, how do I get that inflammation down and calm in the body? And for those of you who are watching, I'm going to show you, for me, the very easiest one that you can do. You can do it every day. It's for everybody before you go to bed. And I'm going to describe it, but for those of you who are watching, you can see it. So basically, you're going to tilt your neck over to one side. You want to open up the side of your neck. And the reason is that's where you can start to help yourself get to the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve is unfortunately not able to get to directly. You have to get it indirectly. So you're sort of tilting your head. You can hold it to the side here to really get a nice tilt. And then you're going to take your eyes and you're going to look diagonally up and away from the elbow that's holding on to your head. So you're looking in the direction of where your neck is open and you're looking at a diagonal. And for those of you who are trying this at home, the first time you do it, man, it hurts your eyes. Your eyes are not used to stretching that way. Maybe your neck is stiff and you're not used to that, making sure that your shoulder is down. So you're really getting a good open here. And it feels weird, but if you hold this for 30 seconds to a minute, you'll see once I go quiet, I immediately start to yawn. I've been doing this exercise for a long time. My body knows what's coming next. 30 seconds to a minute before I go to bed, when I'm feeling stressed, before I go to an important meeting. And then, of course, you would do the other side and you would stretch it out. 30 seconds to a minute. You could also do this laying down. I do recommend sitting just in case it makes you dizzy. And if you do that every day, you'll start to feel saliva comes through. You'll start to feel, like I said, I immediately start to yawn. And this is, you don't have to think about it. You don't have to use mental strength. You don't have to talk yourself down. You don't have to say breathe when your body's saying, I don't want to breathe, right? There's no fight about this. And this will automatically activate. And there are probably, 50 exercises that I could give you that's like that. But the important point is, I don't want, for any habit change that you're going to do, I don't want it to be a battle. I don't want it to be a fight. I don't want it to feel hard. I want to make this feel easy for you. The other tip that I will give for breathing, a lot of times when we're really activated, and then someone says, calm down, breathe. And you're like, I don't want to calm down. Sorry, I have to speak like Jan for a second because someone appreciated his French. I don't want to fucking calm down, right? I'm very upset.
It's Mika who appreciates
it. Loves the French. When you're in that moment and you're just like, oh, take a deep breath, that is not possible for your body. Your body is so activated. It feels so aggressive, ready to fight. The lion is in front of you. That's not a real possibility. That takes way too much willpower. So what can you do there? Stop breathing. What happens when you're very activated is you breathe a lot. Because you're very nervous or you're ready to run or you're ready to fight, you're taking in a lot to power yourself up. The easiest thing you can do is just stop breathing for a moment. Okay, one more. And once you stop breathing, do it 1, 2 times. It's not a specific amount of time. You don't have to calculate it. You don't have to do a breath in or out. Don't make it fancy. Just hold your breath. That's enough to start balancing your body, to get you to a place where you could say, okay, I'm ready to take a breath, or I'm ready to walk away peacefully for the moment. So most important for everybody, but specifically people who have autoimmune diseases like that, is those levelings of the nervous system before you respond or before you take an action throughout the day. It will remove the stress, inflammation in your body. It will make you much healthier. It will help you to make better decisions. I hope that's helpful.
Okay, I will add and basically complement what Lisa said, right? What is important to have, because we have two nervous systems. It's like sympathetic, like if we are breathing in, there is some tension here, and if you are breathing out, there's like relax, right? So sympathetic, parasympathetic, then there's a diaphragm playing very important role. Lisa mentioned nervus vagus, vagus nerve, nervus vagus in Latin, again playing very important role, because nervus vagus is basically, connecting us to amygdala, and amygdala is the emotional part of the brain. And nervus vagus, what Lisa was doing with that, exercise, it's like cooling your amygdala down, and everything, you feel good, everything is, fine. The same with breathing. If we are like breathing it, it should be, the majority of the people are not breathing properly. That's the
like
reason
100%.
sometimes they cannot fall asleep, So if we are like breathing in, the 2/3 of breathing in, your, belly should move, right? And then on the last third, your chest should move up. Okay. And if we are breathing like regularly, breathing in, breathing out, your diaphragm moves. The problem is, for whatever reason, it can be some external impulse, it can be just some thought, which is translated into the emotion. If you are stressed for some reason, you start to breathe in the following way, like that, what Lisa said, right? And that means that your diaphragm stops, basically. This is also a reason why a lot of people with some, mental issues, they first feel it on the body, because you have a problem with the stomach, with your gut, because, diaphragm is good for like, regular breathing, but it's also good for digestion process, and it's stabilizing, some muscles on your, back also. So proper breathing is a key, right? So what you can do, like to cool yourself down and have a proper breathing, like breathe in on, say, 3, and breathe out for 5. Breathing out, if you want to cool down, breathing out should be longer, because it's like, stabilizing your, nervous system. That's number one. And number two, we are breathing out CO2, which is necessary for hemoglobin to distribute oxygen in your blood. So you will get, like cherry on the cake, more oxygen in your blood. But basically what I'm telling my athletes, for example, breathe in and then create small hole, in your lips, and go like, right? All of those activities are trying to put your brain on alpha level, which is the best. It's between 8 to 12 hertz. And that's when your brain is really like on optimal, performance. This is because your brain is predicting based on your myelins, right? And if you are like concentrated, if you are on the alpha level, chances are that you are in that, flow. What is helpful also, it's yoga, it's Tai Chi, it is Yoga Nidra, which is like body scan. You can find it. But definitely all of those activities where you are like cooling down are, helpful also, how you create the habit. Because the issue is with Philip, the issue is that if we are not able to create a habit, it's always our emotional part of the brain. It's amygdala trying to do like emotional connection stuff, like it makes no sense. I'll not be able to do it because my friends are not able to do it, or my dad or my mother was not able to do it. Come on, right? There are some talents, going through the genes, but it can go from the fifth generation. It doesn't, really. So genes
Yeah.
are genes, right? And plus, there is epigenetics. Epigenetics means that you have some genes, but it depends what you will do with those genes, more or less,
Exactly.
environment and so on, right? So this is it. So it is really like cooling down and give your, neocortex a little bit, more time. That should be
Yes.
fine.
And I want to add to that before we move to anything else. The micro habit that I have around breathing is that there are many different, let's say Spotify, and you can get like a little bell that will go ding when you should breathe in, and then ding when you should breathe out. And if I'm really just like doing work at my computer, I put it on 5.5 seconds in and 5.5 seconds out. This is the golden perfect breath. Right? It's not to help you to calm down. It's not to help you to come up. It's just the right level, 5.5 to 6 seconds in and 5.5 to 6 seconds out. And so what I do is I literally just put the app in, ding, I breathe in, then I breathe out. And it becomes so habitual. I just hear it in the background and I match the pace. And then I'm not
Exactly.
sitting counting. I'm not setting aside time for my breathing necessarily. It just is happening at the right rhythm as I'm working. So it's not as I'm working on emails, I'm getting more and more stressed and my shoulders are coming up. And then because I have something, this small, easy micro habit that helps me to stay really centered and calmed with that perfect breath. This is what I mean about making it so easy. I don't need to add time. I don't need to concentrate. I don't need to think. I just put on the app and the app has the noise that helps me do it without ever having to worry about it.
I need to say hello to my friend Ioannis Alekos. Ioannis, all the best to you and to your dad, Panos. I used to coach his dad, and he is now
Oh, great.
studying. He's a doctorate student, at King's College in London. So Ioannis, all the best, all
Amazing.
the best.
Welcome.
Yeah. So yeah, it's not easy to create new habits, not at all, but possible. But you need to go. You need to like. You will not eat elephant in one chunk. You go step by step, and this is the same. You need to be patient. Right? You need to go step by step, but you need to believe. You need to have self confidence. I'll be able to do it. Yeah. What what
Yeah.
is what is what is happening? What is helping? It's something they call mindful, learning, or uh, learning where you are really focused, right? So if you learn something, what is necessary to do? Be focused. That's one thing. Then be in the flow, be a little bit out of your comfort zone, like concentrated using your talent, and get feedback as soon as possible. As soon as possible, get a feedback. That's the way you learn. That's the way how you can, create new myelins. I mean, create myelin, means really like go from 3G to 5G on your, it's like broadband. It's what they are saying, that myelin is 100% faster connection than non-myelinated connection, non-myelinated synapses. So, but it requires some efforts. Absolutely. I mean, I don't know if I share it with you, but during the COVID, I had a chance to be at a training with Tim Grover. Tim was for 15 years personal coach for Michael Jordan. Okay. And I told him, skill, in my view, is talent multiplied by the investment, by the repetition, multiplied by the time I spent in the flow. Because more you are in the flow, it's faster. Okay. He said, well, let's talk about Michael. And he said he was talented, but there was another 10 players, on that level at his time. But if we talk about investment, if we talk about repetition, he was throwing the ball 90 minutes more every day than the rest of the group. 90 minutes. Okay. If you think about 1 year, 10 years, right? And then
Yeah.
he said, and he was always getting some tough, angles, throwing, really tough balls and so on. I was about the flow. And So it's compounded interest. I mean, that's the same with the habit. It's compounded interest, right?
Yeah. And what I love about that is when you want to create something new, and for those of us, who say, okay, I want to figure out how to make those harder shots, I want to do that, you can do what's called habit stacking. So take something that you're already doing and then just add this new
Exactly.
thing to it. And I give you a very easy example from my mother-in-law. She's as she's getting older, she's very conscious of just not having mobility, having her balance, just making sure that her body stays fit. So every day when she's brushing, she stands for 1 minute on her right foot and then 1 minute on the left foot. So she has to actually
Wow.
balance. She's not standing on two. But she's going to brush for 2 minutes twice a day,
That's
three
it.
times a
That's a
day,
good.
regardless.
I will start tomorrow.
So this is a really nice way to put in the habits. Not, oh, I have to think, oh, when do I do my exercise? When do I do that? You're already doing something. So you just tack on the habit to it. Like we said, when you first wake up in the morning and you go to the bathroom, drink your cup of water there. When you sit down at the table at a restaurant before the
Absolutely.
bread comes, drink that cup of water. So you stack a habit into something you're already doing and make it really easy for you. Now, I want to make sure I mention the other thing that so many people talk about with habits is they go, I'm really motivated. I'm going to write a book in 2025 and I'm going to write every day. And then all of a sudden they wake up, they're really tired. Today I'm going to skip my writing. Okay. And then they're feeling bad. They've lost their momentum. So here's what you have to do. Number one, never miss 2 days in a row if it's something that you're doing daily. If you miss one, forgive yourself, let it go, but you don't miss two. Because once you miss two, you start to go, oh, I can't do it. I'm
You
off.
create negative momentum. Yeah.
Exactly. So never miss two. Forgive yourself for one and move on. But also make it easy to show up. So if you're very tired and you're like, oh, I just can't imagine that I'm going to write today, it wouldn't come to me, then tell yourself, okay, I'm going to write one sentence. One sentence anybody can do, right? It's not, I have to have 500 words. I have to have this philosophical, that I'm going to write one sentence. And then you show up. Now, once you write the one sentence and you've already sat in front of the computer and you're already there, by the time you've written your one sentence, likely you get into a flow, you're able to do more. But even if you can't, it doesn't matter. You showed up. And that is credit. So keep giving yourself these momentums. It's not always how hard you push at the thing you're trying to learn, but it's the consistency of showing up. Don't show up really hard and then it was so hard 3 days go by and you don't want to do it again. That's not going to get you to your change. Consistently showing up is what will get you to your change. And we have this comment from Philip, who was talking a little bit further about his question
No,
about
I
MS.
know. Yeah, Philip, I know that you were talking about the patient, patients which they don't have a ability to remember. I don't have to be honest, I don't have a experience with somebody with multiple sclerosis, whether they can whether the body can remember that. I tell you what I know, and obviously I'm not the medical doctor at all. Okay,
Me neither.
I know that breathing, it's about the more or less about the muscle memory. A lot of people think that muscle memory sits in some muscles in our body. It's not true. The muscle memory sits in the brain, right? So the muscle memory sits in the brain. So I really, I'm not sure how this this works. If you can't remember whether you can, because there are different people have a different illnesses, and that's for me this is hard to judge. But I understand what you say. Yeah.
Yeah, and maybe I can add
Yeah.
one thing here. It's not specific to MS, but I think it would be relevant for a lot of people, because a lot of people come to me today and say, I have severe anxiety, I have ADHD, and I have a bad memory. I really struggle to remember things. I'm forgetful,
Right.
I'm disorganized, I lose things. And a lot of the times what I tell them is, actually what you have is an overactivated nervous system. And because it's so overactivated and there's so much going on and there's so many new inputs, your brain can't focus and it can't remember anything because it hasn't focused on anything. It hasn't really taken anything in. You're really in just this survival mode. So I'm not talking about people who have like an Alzheimer's disease or something like that, where it's really a memory loss. But for people who say, like, I just struggle with memory, I can't remember someone's name. Actually, I would still say that's still the nervous system. The best thing that you can do is bring yourself calm again, focused again. What do I need to remember? And really placing that calmness in. The other thing that stops people from remembering is because we have, again, these emotional coping mechanisms. So if something doesn't feel good, I don't want to be in my body because my body feels anxious and overwhelmed and this is scary and this is like too much. And so what we do is basically emotionally distance ourselves. We do flight, right? From fight or flight. And so we want to run away. We want to have our brain go away because what's present for us feels too hard, scary, overwhelming, or maybe in physical pain, it hurts to have MS, right? So I don't want to be in my body because it hurts and I don't like feeling hurt. So my brain floats away and then I'm not paying attention and therefore I don't really remember things because I'm not really present. So it is more about learning how to be okay with I'm in pain right now. I'm feeling overwhelmed right now. I'm feeling scared right now. And how to be okay and sit with those emotions. You'll find that memory tends to work a lot better then because you're not escaping, leaving, or defocusing yourself.
And we talk about recovery. I mean, if I compare, Johannes, congratulations, by the way, on what you are doing. I'll be in London at the end of the February, so maybe we can, organize some lessons again for the students. So I will follow up with you, Johannes, afterwards. So yeah, what is interesting, right? There is a lot of digital noise during the day. There's a lot of stuff around and noise, whatever. And if you have enough recovery, if you sleep enough, chances are that all of the noise and everything will be trimmed out and all good stuff will be organized in the proper way. Then during the REM phases, thank you so much. Philip, we try. We are not the doctors, but we try to help. Thank you. It's properly, organized, and during the REM phase, it's like, put together. So recovery it is absolutely key. That's number one. Number two, my experience with people who got like problem with concentration is following. Once they really like what they do, they concentrate much better. Okay. And the reason for that, probably, I assume, again, I'm not a scientist, probably, once they start to do what they like, they do it, repetitively, myelins are created, and myelins are good also for concentration. Because, look, I try to build myelins with my athletes because then they can predict the balls. Now I have the junior player is seeded as the number one, Jan Kumstad, starting next week at the Australian Open. So, you know what I mean, right? Those, myelins, it is helping also with the concentration. Absolutely.
Yep. And I would add here in answer to the question, does working in the flow trigger any adrenaline reaction? I want you to think of flow state as you're not in fight or flight, right? You don't have to like fight against something, but you are activated into that really good positive stress area. If you don't have enough stress, you're bored, you're not in, you're completely disengaged. So you're in that right level of stress, and it could include some adrenaline, but it's not like that adrenaline pump, pump, pump. I'm ready. I'm going to fight for it. Flow is a little bit more of a relaxed state where this part of the brain is helping to take over. And the reason that feels good in people who have ADHD or feel they have ADHD, why they feel so good in the flow state is the flow state takes you away from sort of what's happening around you and you're really in the zone. Oh, good. Jan has a beautiful dog.
Here's the explanation. Here is your performance and here is adrenaline, and that's the flow. That's the flow. Okay. which means that you need, you know, a little bit of adrenaline, optimal amount of the adrenaline. Because like you in the morning, if you are like getting up, like only like if you are laying down and like sit, that means, you know, adrenaline, and it means also another, you know, stress hormones like
Yeah,
cortisol, a little
cortisol.
bit, you know, right? So, and now the question is, what is it, this optimal level of adrenaline for the flow? I am nervous, but I'm looking forward for that activity. I'm partially, you know what I mean, right? I'm like
Yeah.
partially anxious, but it is like I'm like looking forward. It's really like this is positive energy. This is not negative energy. Obviously, once it's over, you are in the deep shit, you know, right?
That's the anxiety mode.
Yeah, this is anxiety. You can, because some, you know, athletes, they can basically lose because they are pushing too much, you know,
Yeah.
right? They are like, I need to, and they are not patient enough. So what can you do if your, you know, stress level is here? Yeah, you can get up here, get back to the present moment, you know, right?
Exactly.
Why the Russian, you know, player Medvedev, he did something terrible today, like with the rocket or whatever. He should, you know, return back to the baseline, breathing in, breathing out, get back to the. I think he won anyway at the end, but you know, this is it, you know, right? I do even visualization with some tennis players, like, hey, imagine now you lost the ball and you are like, you know, angry with yourself, how you feel, and you go back and you are like breathing in, breathing out, and you go like a lion. I've told them, watch Novak Djokovic. He is walking all the time as a lion, you know, right?
He's on
Yes,
one.
she likes her little garden. Only 80 meters up. Okay, guys, it
Good.
is 9 o'clock, and I have some fencing guy, you know, on
Yeah.
online later on, like a couple of minutes. So, Lisa, anything on conclusion, wrap up?
The only thing I want to say to you all is make your change easy. If it's easy, if it's fun, if it's interesting, if it's social, you'll do it. Don't make it hard. Don't make it willpower. Don't make it painful. Make it something you want. And what you'll see after 6 months is incredible. And then you can come back to us and let us know in 6 months to a year what big changes you've made and how your life has gotten better for it.
Perfect. Okay, guys, thank you very much, and
Thank
we see
you.
you soon again.
Take
We will, you
care.
know, I will basically save it to all channels, Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. The best is probably YouTube because you have, you know, everything there. If you like it, you know, like us and subscribe the channel.
Please.
That helps, you know, to distribute it to the other people. So thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Good night.